with Tolkien, a podcast for the Hobbit at heart. Pull up a cozy chair and join us as we chat about the works and faith of J.R.R. Tolkien, and strive to carry a little piece of Middle-earth into our own daily lives. Chapter 23 of Tuor and the Fall of Gondolin. And it is said that in that time Ulmo came to Valinor out of the deep waters and spoke there to the Valar of the need of the elves. And he called on them to forgive them and rescue them from the overmastering might of Morgoth and win back the Silmarils, wherein alone now bloomed the light of the days of bliss when the two trees still shone in Valinor. But Manwë moved not, and of the counsels of his heart what tale shall tell? The wise have said that the hour was not yet come, and that only one speaking in person for the cause of both elves and men, pleading for pardon on their misdeeds and pity on their woes, might move the councils of the powers. And the oath of Feanor perhaps even Manwë could not loose, until it found its end, and the sons of Feanor relinquished the Silmarils upon which they had laid their ruthless claim. For the light which lit the Silmarils the Valar themselves had made. This quote is very intense, very beautiful, as Tolkien is known to do, but it also gives us a lot of foreshadowing into how the whole story is going to end. So we will see a lot more about what this quote is referring to in the next chapter next week. Chapter 23 of Tuor and the Fall of Gondolin. So the son of Huor, brother of Húrin, was named Tuor, and he was raised by the Grey-elves. When he was 16, he was taken and enslaved by Lorgan, chief of the Easterlings in Hithlum, and after 3 years he escaped. When he had lived as an outlaw for 4 years, Ulmo put it on his heart to seek out for Gondolin. Tolkien wrote, "For he had chosen Tuor as the instrument of his designs." Tuor left and he came to Nevrast, where he dwelt alone for a while. If you'll remember, Nevrast is the place where everybody abandoned it when they went to Gondolin, and he lived there for a while. There Tuor found the shield, sword, and helm that Turgon had left behind at the command of Ulmo years before, and he took them upon himself. Ulmo arose from the waters, and he spoke to Tuor. Tolkien writes, "And Ulmo bade him depart from that place and seek out the hidden kingdom of Gondolin, and he gave Tuor a great cloak to mantle him in shadow from the eyes of his enemies. Along the way Tuor met Voronwë, and they traveled to Gondolin together. Turgon recognized Tuor's helm, and he knew that Ulmo had sent him, so he allowed him to come into Gondolin. If you'll remember, nobody was allowed in, so this was a really big deal. Tuor came before Turgon, and he warned him that the Curse of Mandos was now drawing near, and he urged him to depart from Gondolin and go down towards the sea. However, Turgon's pride did not allow him to accept this counsel, which is insane because Ulmo literally told him before he even came to Gondolin that all of this would happen, and he specifically had the whole sword and helm and everything left behind specifically for this purpose, and Turgon still doesn't get it. I'm sure all of us can relate to that. We all make mistakes. No one's perfect, especially not Turgon. So after this, even though he wasn't really able to get Turgon to listen to him, Tuor remained in Gondolin, and he was widely respected, and he was so well respected that he was even allowed to marry Idril. Maeglin, if you will remember, he was in love with Idril even though they were related and she didn't like him back, this whole weird being in love with your cousin thing. And so he hated Tuor because that he loved Idril and really wanted to possess her, especially because she was the only heir to the throne of Gondolin. After this, Tuor and Idril had a son, and his name was Eärendil Half-Elven. In this time, Morgoth continued to desperately seek out Gondolin because after he heard Húrin calling out that one time, a couple chapters ago, he knew the general region of Gondolin, and so he was fully focused on finding Gondolin. And in this time, Idril built a secret path that would lead out of Gondolin, but she didn't tell very many people, and she especially didn't tell Maeglin. So a time came when Maeglin had traveled outside the realm of Gondolin secretly, and he was captured and taken prisoner all the way to Angband. Maeglin then was tormented, and he eventually purchased his life and his freedom by telling Morgoth the location of Gondolin. In return, Maeglin was promised the lordship of Gondolin as Morgoth's vassal and the possession of Idril, which is gross and creepy. After making a deal with Morgoth, Morgoth sent Maeglin back to Gondolin so that no one would suspect it was him. And then when Eärendil was 7 years old, Morgoth finally attacked Gondolin. Tolkien writes, "At last, in the year when Eärendil was 7 years old, Morgoth was ready, and he loosed upon Gondolin his Balrogs and his orcs and his wolves, and with him came dragons of the brood of Glaurung, and they were become now many and terrible." So there was this crazy battle. Ecthelion and Turgon both fell in battle, and Tuor fought Maeglin and cast him down. So Maeglin is out of the picture at this point, which worked out great for Morgoth. He really got exactly what he wanted, and he didn't have to pay Maeglin anything in the end. Something really interesting about the death of Maeglin is that it was actually predicted by his father all the way back in chapter 16. Before Eöl, Maeglin's father, is cast down from the walls of the city, he says, "So you forsake your father and his kin, ill-gotten son. Here shall you fail of all your hopes, and here may you yet die the same death as I." So this doom that was laid upon him by his father actually comes fully to fruition in this chapter as Maeglin is cast down from the walls of the city, which is just crazy. And he lived an incredibly sad life. I can't help but feel very bad for him, even though he made a lot of terrible choices. Obviously, you should never sell out Gondolin to Morgoth, even if you're jealous because your cousin who you're in love with got married to this guy you don't like. Tuor and Idril escaped through the secret passage with as many people as possible. And even though they were able to escape, it was still like a very perilous pass. However, Thorondor, the Great Eagle, came to their aid and helped them out a lot, as Tolkien loves to do. Tuor led the remnant of Gondolin through the mountains in secret, and he came to the Vale of Sirion. And at this point, Morgoth thought that he was victorious because he didn't realize they had escaped. All he saw was that Gondolin was destroyed, which it was, but he didn't realize that the most important people had fled. Idril and Tuor joined with a company of Elwing, Dior's daughter, who had the Silmaril. At this point, Ulmo comes to Valinor to plead to the Valar on behalf of the elves and men, which is the quote we read at the beginning of this episode. But as we all know, the Valar did nothing. In the end of his life, after all of this, Tuor built a ship and he set sail into the sunset, into the west with Idril, and after that they weren't heard from again. Tolkien writes, "But in after days it was sung that Tuor alone of mortal men was numbered among the elder race, and was joined with the Noldor whom he loved, and his fate is sundered from the fate of men." Why do you think Ulmo chose Tuor for this specific purpose? Why did Maeglin betray Gondolin? When did Morgoth choose to attack Gondolin, and what is the significance of Eärendil's age? What is the significance of the sea in this chapter? Because the sea is mentioned quite a lot, especially in the way it pertains to Ulmo, who is the Valar of the sea. What role does Ulmo play in this chapter? And how is his role different from the rest of the Valar? The last question I have that I think would spark a good discussion is, why is the fate of Tuor sundered from the fate of men? And why is that allowed? Because we see a lot of times that if death is the gift of Iluvatar, and the Valar are not allowed to meddle with that, why is suddenly the fate of Tuor different? I hope you enjoyed this episode. We will be back next week with chapter 24 of the Voyage of Eärendil and the War of Wrath.